One of the most remarkable developments in American politics, I would say perhaps the most remarkable, is the openness of Latinos and Hispanics to voting for the Republican Party. We saw this in the 2020 election. I've got some remarkable data here. This is from the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, which is the blue part of Texas, in fact, deep blue. Trump in McAllen, Texas, which is one of the region's largest cities, got nearly double the votes that he got 4 years earlier. And in the Rio Grande Valley overall, Biden won, but he won by 15 percentage points, a steep slide from Hillary's 39% margin in 2016. And what this means is that Latinos and Hispanics are giving the Republican Party, and gave Trump, a very careful look. Now, we're very lucky to have the chairwoman of the Hidalgo County Republican Party, Adrienne Pena-Garza, with us to help us make sense of these, I think, thrilling developments. And at this point, let me turn it over to Debbie, because this idea of turning the Rio Grande Valley red has been something that you've been talking about since as long as I've known you.
Right. Well, that's because that's my hometown girl, right? Before us. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley from the age of 10 until graduated high school. My mother is from the Rio Grande Valley. She lives in Harlingen. And so I'm very rooted on the valley and the development of the valley, and the fact that wanting to turn the valley red has been a long-time dream of mine. So seeing people like Adrienne take charge and really educate Hispanics in the valley that are conservative as to which party supports those principles and the platform that best describes them. So Adrienne, how was Trump able to increase the vote turnout in the valley for Republicans?
Well, he stood proudly for life. He stood proudly for border security, for traditional values here in South Texas, for law enforcement, for checks and balances, wanting to fight corruption. And I know, Mr. Denise, the work that you guys have done is incredible. I remember showing Hillary's America to members of my family, and they were shocked because the media here doesn't always share both sides of the story.
Adrienne, since you mentioned your family, you come from a family of Democrats. Your dad was a prominent political figure in the Valley, Democratic. And then it seems like around 2010, I guess this is 2 years into Obama, he decided to become a Republican, and so did you. Can you talk about first of all, tell us why you were so anchored in the Democratic Party? Because it seems like you're conservative in your convictions. And then what is it that turned the switch that made you go, I'm out of here, I'm going to actually give the other side a try?
Well, I actually attended college and I took my intro to political science class, and I learned about the political spectrum. And I believe I had a Governor Susana Martinez moment of, hey, I'm a Republican. So my dad switching did have a lot to do with it. He helped give the Republican Party a supermajority in 2003. People were very kind and friendly to him in Austin, and he just learned more about, the differences of the party statewide and nationwide. Down here, we live in a bubble. The JFK Democrats, the MLK Democrats message has resonated here for a very long time. There's a lot of good conservative Democrats in the Valley that I believe are Republican. They just don't know it yet.
They don't know it.
I mean, this was Reagan, right? Reagan said that in the Valley, and
that's right. He went to the Valley in 1980, and I got to see him, and he said Latinos are Republican. They just don't know it. Well, I knew it. So I've been a Republican since the age of 14, and again, I think it's wonderful that the Valley is turning that way. But Adrienne, what do you think is the greatest obstacle in turning all of the Valley red? How do you not convince all voters to vote Republican?
Well, going back to the media, unfortunately, the media has been sort of controlled by the Democratic Party for a very long time. The crab in a bucket mentality also kind of keeps things the way it is. But also, politiqueras. There are several candidates, elected officials that use politiqueras, and they pay some of the poorest communities to vote. And that is something that we deal with that's very, very difficult. We have good candidates on the ballot, but we don't pay people to vote. We don't bus people in to vote, and we don't threaten people at the polls. And there's a lot of that goes on down here. Unfortunately.
You're saying there's a fairly elaborate system of political corruption in which, in a sense, bribes are paid to people to turn up and vote a certain way. Is there a way to sort of bust that wide open, to expose that, to do a report on it that brings it to light so people can see what's going on and maybe some corrective action taken at the state level if possible? Does Governor Abbott know about this?
Well, I'd love to have a sit-down conversation with him about it. I think he knows a little bit to the degree, but I think it's up to us to, support our candidates and to expose. And I think people are afraid. They choose the devil that they know, so to speak, and so some of the people that don't support these candidates will still vote for them out of feeling like that's the only way to go. There's one person in particular that I'm thinking of that. He does use power boss type of mentality and does keep people the way they are and represents city entities and is also elected official. There are several documentaries that I'm sure you could do down here, Mr. Chinese.
Well, when we come back, we want to probe this matter further and look to see there have been a couple of very close races and what can put Republicans over the top and what is the significance of all that when we come back.